Fox News host Tucker Carlson is again facing calls to resign or for Fox News to fire him and or for advertisers to boycott his program after essentially arguing that the great replacement theory, sometimes known as the white replacement theory, is real in the United States, but it's not racist to suggest it. Now, it's very difficult to know where to start because there's so much here, but maybe to set the stage, I'll tell you a little bit about great replacement or white replacement theory. This is something that comes from France originally. In modern times, it's become a favorite of white nationalists and white supremacists. Originally, in France, it was a theory that white French people were being deliberately replaced by non-European people, including Arabs, South Asians, Africans, and others, through a combination of importing people from those countries through immigration, combined with white French people being encouraged to have fewer babies or having a lower birth rate. Now it's just become in the US, when we talk about great replacement theory or white replacement theory, it's a popular white nationalist, white supremacist idea. And it not only is it, generally speaking, white supremacist, it's also specifically anti-Semitic in some of its flavors. You might remember back in the Charlottesville white supremacist rally back in 2017, they were chanting, among other things, Jews will not replace us. That's what this is about. That's a reference to exactly this idea. So Tucker Carlson goes on and he's interviewed, I think it's by Mark Stein, and says, Democrats do want to replace Americans and they want to dilute the population, but it's not racist. It's just true. So let's just jump right into the first clip.
I'm laughing because this is one of about 10 stories that I know you've covered, where the government shows preference to people who have shown absolute contempt for our customs, our laws, our system itself, and they're being treated better than American citizens. Now, I know that the left and all the little gatekeepers on Twitter become literally hysterical if you use the term replacement, if you suggest that the Democratic Party is trying to replace the current electorate, the voters now casting ballots, with new people, more obedient voters from the third world. But they become hysterical because that's what's happening, actually. Let's just say it. That's true.
So Tucker, as a good faux populist, or maybe better said, as a right-wing populist, he knows enough to avoid saying this in the way that is overtly racist. He does it more subtly and with code. When he talks about replacing American voters with voters from the third world, he's talking about voters that are mostly brown people or black people. That's it. He's using coded language. So not only is this straight up great replacement stuff, it's also nonsense. And as I've said before, trying to win elections by importing people who are slightly more likely to vote for them in 7 to 9 years when they get citizenship, if they get citizenship, it's a terrible strategy. Think of the numbers. And this is why, we very often react to the rhetoric and we ignore the sort of factual or empirical basis. 75 million people voted for Donald Trump. If naturalized immigrants vote for Democrats 60-40, because remember, even though a lot of people like Tucker want you to believe that all immigrants are very left-wing, the truth is that Cubans and Venezuelans are not very left-wing. There are lots of Asian immigrants that are not left-wing. There are many Eastern European immigrants that are not left-wing. Anyway, let's imagine that naturalized immigrants by a 60-40 margin vote for Democrats. That means that for every 500,000 immigrants that become citizens, that's only a 100,000 vote margin for Democrats. When you compare that to population growth, when you compare that to people who move between states, it's a drop in the bucket when you talk about bringing people in, having them wait the 5 years before they can request citizenship, and then the additional period to go through that process. If this is how Democrats are trying to win, it's a very stupid strategy. Let's continue with the clip.
If this was happening in your house, if you were in 6th grade, for example, and without telling you, your parents adopted a bunch of new siblings and gave them brand new bikes and let them stay up later and help them with their homework and gave them twice the allowance that they gave you, you would say to your siblings, I think we're being replaced by kids that our parents love more. And it would be kind of hard to argue against you because Look at the evidence. So
Right.
this matters on a bunch of different levels, but on the most basic level, it's a voting rights question. In a democracy, one person equals one vote. If you change the population, you dilute the political power of the people who live there. So every time they import a new voter, I become disenfranchised as a current voter.
Now, by that logic, every time a new American-born kid turns 18, Tucker's vote is also worth slightly less. Every time an adult dies, Tucker's vote is worth slightly more. This is just life. This is inflows, outflows. It's not evidence of any kind of grand replacement theory. Let's look at just one more clip here.
So I don't understand why we don't understand this. I mean, everyone wants to make a racial issue out of it. Ooh, the white replacement theory. No. This is a voting rights question. I have less political power because they're importing a brand new electorate. Why should I sit back and take that? The power that I have as an American guaranteed at birth is one man, one vote, and they're diluting it. No, they're not allowed to do that. Why are we putting up with this?
So this is what happens when people fall for populism. In some ways, in rhetoric, people will watch Tucker and they'll say that there's a lot there that sounds kind of like Bernie Sanders. There's like similar language that's being used there. They're for the people. They're for the middle class. They criticize the elites, corporations. Sometimes I'm with the little guy. But then Tucker goes on a rant about third world immigrants diluting his voting power. Black Lives Matter is going to take your house. Immigrants make the country dirtier, as he said. I don't know if it was 6 months or a year ago. We covered it. This is the guy that some on the left are idolizing, saying Tucker is outflanking the left on some issues. There's a contingent on the left that has completely fallen for this guy. It's incredible stuff. And as consequences for Tucker, I imagine none. He's at Fox News to do this type of stuff. This is a feature, not a bug. And while he's dealt with some advertiser boycotts, anybody hoping for some kind of repercussions to this, do not hold your breath. We'll have more on this story and others from today's show on the David Pakman Show Instagram page. You can find us at David Pakman Show. And if you want to see a very strange hate mail that I got this morning, follow me on Instagram at david.pakman. You may not have known this, but when you see me sitting here on the show, I am often wearing shirts by a company called Teddy Stratford. I asked them to be a sponsor because they are by far my favorite shirts that I own. With almost all other slim fit button-up shirts I've worn, you get this annoying stretched out gap in the chest where the buttons are, which does not look good. But what makes Teddy Stratford shirts unique is this patented zipper that's hidden underneath the buttons, which actually prevents the chest from looking weird and stretched out like that. It looks really good. And just all around, they cut the entire shirt in a specific way that makes your upper body look a lot better. It's just a much nicer and more stylish fit than you get from other shirts. And they hand make everything with 100% Egyptian cotton and flat felled seams, which means it's going to be a lot more durable than other shirts and last a lot longer, which I really love. Go check them out at davidpakman.com/Teddy. The link is down below and they'll give you 15% off your first order if you use the coupon code Pakman at checkout.